That night, when my family stood at my gate in the pouring rain demanding the house I built from nothing, I realized life had come full circle. 8 years ago, they threw me out in that same rain, laughing as I begged for shelter. But this time, I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just smiled, and made one phone call that changed everything. The rain was pouring so hard it sounded like the sky was angry. I stood by my gate, my clothes soaked, hair dripping, but I didn't move an inch. My family, yes, the same family that had thrown me out 8 years ago, stood in front of me with fake smiles and greedy eyes. My older sister, Melissa, crossed her arms. "You're alone, Grace. No husband, no children. You don't need this big house. We're taking it." My mother, who hadn't called me once since that night, nodded in agreement. "You owe us, after all we did for you." I didn't say a word. I just looked at them, the same people who once pushed me out into the storm when I was at my lowest. I could still remember the cold, the hunger, the humiliation. Then, I took out my phone, wiped the rain off the screen, and made one call. "Hello?" a deep voice answered on the other end. "It's time," I said quietly. The gate opened slowly behind me, and a black car pulled in. The look on their faces changed immediately, confusion, then fear. I smiled for the first time that day. And that was how everything began. 8 years earlier, I had nothing but a torn suitcase, a few old clothes, and the heavy weight of shame. I never thought I'd end up like that, jobless, heartbroken, and unwanted. But life doesn't always follow your plans. I used to be the one everyone in my family was proud of. I was the first to graduate from university, the one who got the big city job. My siblings looked up to me. My parents bragged about me to their friends. I was the golden child, until everything came crashing down. It started when the company I worked for went bankrupt. One day I had a desk, an office ID, and dreams of promotion. The next day, I was standing on the street holding a brown envelope with my last paycheck and a polite, "We're sorry." At first, I thought it was temporary. I kept applying, hoping to find something fast. But weeks turned to months, and months turned into a year. My savings ran out. My rent piled up. I moved back home thinking my family would help. After all, we were family. But I was wrong. Melissa, my sister, made it clear the first night. "We're not going to carry you, Grace. Everyone has problems." My younger brother, Jason, laughed. "You used to act like you were better than us. Now look at you. No job, no man, no life." I swallowed my pride and stayed silent. Mom didn't defend me. She just sighed and said, "You need to stop being lazy. You can't sit here all day." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them how hard I'd been trying. But when you've lost everything, even your voice feels small. Days turned into weeks. I tried to help around the house, cooking, cleaning, anything to feel useful. But no matter what I did, they still found something to complain about. One night, everything exploded. It was raining, the power had gone out, and we were all sitting around the table eating in silence. Melissa looked up from her plate and said, "You know, maybe if you weren't so picky, you'd have a job by now. Not everyone gets to choose." Jason chuckled. "She's probably waiting for a rich husband to pick her up." I felt something snap inside me. "You think I want to be here? You think I haven't been trying? Then try harder." Mom shouted, "You've become a burden, Grace. You're an adult, act like one." The next few minutes were a blur. Shouting, accusations, tears. Then Melissa stood up and pointed toward the door. "If you don't like how we treat you, then leave." I thought she was bluffing. But then Mom got up too. "You heard her. Get out. Maybe the rain will teach you something about gratitude." And just like that, I was outside. No bag, no umbrella, just the sound of thunder and my heart breaking. I stood there for hours, drenched, staring at the windows where I used to sleep. I thought about begging them to let me back in, but my pride, that tiny thing I had left, wouldn't let me. So I left. The next few months were the hardest of my life. I slept in shelters, worked small jobs, cleaned offices, and saved every coin I could. There were nights I went to bed hungry, mornings I woke up cold, but I kept going. I had nothing left to lose, except my will to survive. Then one day, luck, or maybe fate, smiled at me. I met a woman named Evelyn while cleaning an office late at night. She was kind, warm, and noticed how neatly I organized things. You've got an eye for detail, she said. Have you ever thought about real estate? I laughed. Real estate? I can't even afford rent. She smiled. Maybe not now, but one day. That one conversation changed my life. Evelyn introduced me to a small real estate agency looking for assistants. I got the job, part-time at first, and threw myself into it. I worked harder than anyone else. Every sale, every client, every late night, I gave it my all. Within 2 years, I was a full-time agent. By the 4th year, I started my own small agency. Evelyn became my mentor, my second mother. I never told her about what happened with my real family. I just said I had lost touch. 8 years passed like a movie montage: success, growth, and finally, peace. And with that peace came something I never expected: power. I bought land, built houses, and even helped other struggling women find jobs. The house I lived in now, the one my family stood in front of 8 years later, was my proudest project. It wasn't just walls and furniture. It was a symbol, a reminder that I made it. Alone. But life has a funny way of circling back. When my family's business started to fail, they remembered me. They called, texted, even tried to visit, but I ignored them. Until today, when they came, uninvited, claiming what was mine. I looked at them from the porch, remembering that rainy night when they threw me out. The same rain was falling again, only this time, I was on the dry side of the gate. Grace, you can't be serious, Melissa said, her voice shaking. We're family. This house should be ours. I didn't reply. I just picked up my phone, the same one I used to make that call. Hello? The voice on the other end said again. It's time, I repeated, my voice calm, steady, unshaken. And as the black car door opened, I watched their faces change: panic, confusion, fear, all at once. That was the moment they realized they were standing in front of someone they no longer knew. The black car's engine purred softly as it stopped beside me. Its tinted windows reflected the faces of my family, pale, frozen, confused. The rain poured harder now, and lightning flashed across the gray sky, lighting up their shocked expressions. The driver stepped out first, tall, broad shoulders, wearing a black coat that screamed authority. He opened the back door, and a man in a navy blue suit got out slowly, holding an umbrella. His presence alone was enough to silence the chaos of the rain. Melissa's voice trembled. Who's that? I turned to her, my eyes calm. That's my lawyer. Her mouth dropped open, and I could see Jason shifting nervously beside her. The man gave me a polite nod. Miss Grace, the documents are ready. Would you like me to proceed? Yes, I said softly. He pulled out a folder and stepped toward my family. I believe you've been trespassing on private property, he began, his tone sharp but professional. This estate belongs solely to Miss Grace under federal registration. Any attempt to claim ownership or demand possession is considered harassment under property law. Melissa blinked. You're joking. We're her family. She can't call the police on her own family. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. Family or not, the law is the law. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, arms crossed, watching as the reality sank in. 8 years ago, I was the one standing in the rain, powerless and broken. Now, the roles had reversed, and I didn't need to raise my voice. Jason finally spoke up, stepping forward. Grace, come on. Don't do this. We were just talking. You don't need to call lawyers. Talking? I interrupted quietly. You were standing at my gate, in the rain, telling me I don't deserve my own house. That's not talking, Jason. That's déjà vu. His face twisted. You're still bitter, huh? After all these years? I laughed softly, shaking my head. No, I'm not bitter. I'm just done. The lawyer turned to me. Would you like me to have them removed, Miss Grace? I paused, staring at the faces that once looked down on me. They looked smaller now, not because they had shrunk, but because I had grown. No, I said. Let them stay. I want them to hear something first. The lawyer nodded and stepped back. I walked closer to the gate, the rain still pouring. My family stood huddled together, their umbrellas forgotten, their pride melting away like the puddles around their feet. Do you remember that night? I asked quietly. When it rained just like this. When you threw me out because I lost my job. No one answered. Mom? I asked. Do you remember what you said? Her lips trembled. Grace? I didn't mean it. Things were hard back then. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said sharply. I understand what it's like to beg for kindness and get silence instead. To sleep on benches, wondering how your own mother could let you stand outside in a storm. Melissa swallowed hard. We were scared too, Grace. We didn't know what to do. You knew what to do, I cut her off. You just chose not to. For a moment, the only sound was the rain and the occasional roll of thunder. Then, I took a deep breath and softened my voice. But I didn't call you here to fight. I called you here because I want you to see something. I turned and signaled the lawyer. He opened the car door again, and 2 women stepped out, wearing black suits, holding clipboards. My family's eyes widened. These, I said, are my property managers. And this, I gestured to the large house behind me, is not just my home. It's one of 25 homes I built through my company. Melissa gasped. You own 25 houses? Jason muttered, you're lying. Am I? I smiled faintly. The company's name is Silver Rain Estates. Maybe you've heard of it. The silence that followed was deafening. The rain fell harder, but they didn't move. Their eyes darted between me and the mansion behind the gate, the house they had just tried to claim. I didn't tell you this to boast, I continued. I just want you to understand that every tear you made me cry, every insult, every night I spent alone in the cold, it built this. Mom looked at me, her eyes glistening. Grace, we didn't know. We thought you'd never recover. I smiled sadly. Neither did I. But sometimes pain is the best teacher. The lawyer cleared his throat. Miss Grace, the papers for the restraining order are ready, should you wish to proceed. Melissa's head shot up. Restraining order? Grace, you can't do that. We're family. Family doesn't throw one of their own into the rain, I said quietly. Family doesn't come back years later trying to take what they didn't build. Jason's voice cracked. Grace, please. We're broke. The shop's gone, Mom's pension is gone, we've got nowhere to go. I looked at him for a long moment. His eyes, once so full of pride and arrogance, were now desperate, pleading. Now you know how it feels, I said softly. The lawyer turned to me again. Miss Grace? I hesitated. There was a small part of me, the same girl who stood outside that house 8 years ago, that still wanted to forgive them. But then I remembered that night, the cold rain on my skin, my mother's voice saying, maybe the rain will teach you gratitude. And I realized it had. But they hadn't learned anything. Let them leave, I said finally. No police. No restraining order, yet. But if they ever step foot on my property again. The lawyer nodded. Understood. He gave a small signal, and the driver stepped forward. You heard her, he said firmly. Off the property. Now. Melissa grabbed my arm desperately. Grace, please. We can stay in the guest room until we find something else. We're your family. I pulled my arm free. You were my family, I said quietly. But you made your choice. I turned around and walked back through the gate as it slowly closed behind me. Through the rain, I could still hear them shouting, begging, arguing among themselves. I didn't look back. Inside, I leaned against the door, breathing deeply. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the storm of emotions that had built up over 8 long years. Evelyn's photo sat on my shelf, smiling at me. I walked over, picked it up, and whispered, you were right. Success is the sweetest silence. But little did I know, that moment of victory was just the beginning of something even darker. Because later that night, I got a call, one that would change everything again. The rain had stopped by the time I sat down with a cup of tea. The quiet after the storm felt strange, almost too peaceful. The fire crackled in the living room, the soft light dancing across the marble floor. My clothes were still damp, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt free. Then, my phone rang. At first, I ignored it. I assumed it was the lawyer calling to confirm something. But when it rang again, and again, I felt a strange chill crawl up my spine. The number was unknown. I hesitated before answering. Hello? A voice came through, hoarse, shaky, familiar. Grace, it's Mom. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't saved her number since the day they threw me out. Hearing her voice now felt like hearing a ghost. Mom? I said slowly. How did you get my number? From Jason, she said weakly. Please, we need to talk. It's about Melissa. I froze. What about her? She's missing. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. Missing? Mom's voice broke. She left after you kicked us out. She said she was going to find a way to make things right, that she'd prove you didn't deserve everything you have. But she hasn't come back. It's been 2 days. I sat down slowly, the phone pressed against my ear. Mom, I saw you all just this morning. You're telling me she's been missing for 2 days? She didn't come home, Mom whispered. She called once, crying. Said something about a deal gone wrong. I thought maybe you knew. I frowned. A deal? What kind of deal? But before Mom could answer, the line went dead. I stared at the phone, my chest tightening. I didn't know what to think. Melissa had always been impulsive, loud, proud, and jealous of anything I had. But missing? That didn't sound like her. I got up and walked to the window. The driveway was empty now, the black car long gone. But something about the quiet outside felt wrong. I locked the doors and checked the security cameras, one of the habits I'd picked up after building my company. I scrolled through the footage from earlier that morning and froze when I saw something odd. Just minutes after my family left the gate, a gray van had stopped across the road. A man stepped out, tall, hooded, face hidden. He stood there for a while, watching the house, before driving off in the same direction my family had gone. A cold wave of fear ran down my spine. Was it connected? Or was it just coincidence? I tried to brush it off, but the uneasy feeling wouldn't go away. I poured myself another cup of tea, hoping it would calm me down. But my hands were trembling too much to hold the cup steady. Then, another call came in, this time, from a private number. I hesitated again before answering. Hello? A deep male voice responded, low and calm. Miss Grace Taylor? Yes, who's this? This is Officer Daniels, from the City Police Department. We found your sister's car near the old industrial area. Her phone was inside. We're still searching the area. My heart dropped. Is she okay? We don't know yet, ma'am. But we'd like to ask if she had any enemies. Anyone who might want to harm her. I almost laughed, but the sound caught in my throat. Enemies? Officer, my sister had more enemies than friends. But if you're asking if I had anything to do with it. That's not what I'm implying, ma'am, he said quickly. We just want to understand what led her there. There were some documents in the car, contracts, property transfers, all with your name on them. What? I stood up. What kind of documents? Fake ones, it seems. Someone was trying to transfer ownership of your estate. My blood ran cold. Melissa. Even after everything, she was still trying to take what wasn't hers. But this time, it looked like she'd gotten involved with someone dangerous. Officer, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I don't know where she is, but if she was trying to forge documents, she might have gotten mixed up with a man named Carl Benson. He's a property fixer, dirty business. I fired him 3 years ago for fraud. I see, the officer replied. Thank you for the information. We'll look into it. The line clicked off again, leaving me alone in the silence of my house. I sank onto the couch, my mind spinning. Part of me was furious. After all, Melissa had caused this herself. But another part, the small, stubborn part that still remembered her as my sister, couldn't stop worrying. Was she hurt? Or was this another one of her manipulations? The hours passed slowly. I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house, every gust of wind outside made my heart race. I finally gave up and sat by the window, staring at the road. Then, around midnight, headlights appeared in the distance. A car was coming up the driveway. At first, I thought it was the police, but the way the car moved, slow, silent, lights flickering, didn't feel right. I grabbed my phone and called the security team. Someone's coming up the drive, I whispered. Stay inside, Miss Grace. We're 2 minutes away. I watched from the window as the car stopped just outside the gate. The driver's door opened. A figure stepped out. It was Melissa. But something was wrong. She was limping, her face pale, her clothes torn. She looked like she'd been through a war. I rushed to the intercom. Melissa? What happened? She didn't answer. She just looked up at the camera, her eyes wide with fear, and mouthed 2 words, "They're coming." Before I could react, another pair of headlights appeared behind her, this time from a black truck speeding toward her car. I screamed into the phone, "Get here now." The security team's voice crackled back, 30 seconds out. But it was too late. The truck hit Melissa's car from behind with a violent crash. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and her scream echoed through the night. I ran toward the door, but the explosion that followed knocked me off my feet. The shockwave shattered the windows, and fire lit up the sky. When I looked up again, all I could see was smoke, fire, and the remains of what used to be my sister's car. I could barely breathe. My ears rang, and my vision blurred as sirens wailed in the distance. Melissa, my sister, was she gone? And if she was, who were they? The next morning, the air smelled of smoke and rain. The fire trucks were still parked outside my gate, their flashing lights turning the misty air into a haunting blur of red and blue. I stood on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching as the police finished combing through the wreckage of what used to be my sister's car. The explosion had been so powerful that even the iron gate was bent in half. Pieces of metal were scattered across the driveway like fallen leaves. I couldn't look away. "Miss Grace," Officer Daniels said gently, stepping toward me, "we found what's left of the vehicle. It's completely destroyed, but we found something else." My stomach turned. "What is it?" He pulled out a small plastic bag. Inside was a silver necklace, a heart-shaped pendant I recognized immediately. It was the one I gave Melissa for her 21st birthday, years before everything went wrong. I reached out with trembling hands. "That's hers," I whispered. "It's hers." Daniels nodded slowly. "We're running DNA tests to confirm, but..." He hesitated, lowering his voice. There wasn't much left to identify. I felt my knees weaken. If the security guard hadn't held me steady, I might have collapsed. "Who did this?" I whispered. "Why, that's what we're trying to find out," Daniels replied. "But based on what we've gathered, your sister was involved with a group that's been under investigation for months. A ring specializing in property fraud, money laundering, and illegal land transfers." My mind raced. "A ring? You mean..." "Yes," he said. "And we found something in her car that might interest you." He handed me another bag, this one holding a burnt folder. Inside were half-burned documents, but I could still make out my company's name, Silver Rain Estates. I froze. They were targeting my company? Daniels nodded grimly. "It seems your sister gave them access to certain files, business permits, property deeds. We also found traces of a data drive. Whoever she was working with, they weren't just after her. They were after you." My heart pounded. "You're saying they killed her to cover their tracks?" "Possibly, but we can't confirm that yet." He glanced toward the wreckage again. "Whoever she was afraid of, the ones she meant when she said, 'They're coming,' they might still be out there." I felt my blood run cold. That night's peace, my victory, my revenge, it all felt meaningless now. Because whoever they were, they had just declared war. For the next few days, my life became a blur of questions, investigations, and sleepless nights. The media caught wind of the explosion, calling it a tragic family dispute turned fatal. They knew nothing, and I preferred to keep it that way. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. I started going through all my files, business records, emails, contracts. I was looking for anything that could explain what Melissa had gotten herself into. Then, one evening, I found something strange. An email from 3 weeks ago, sent from an unrecognized address, cbpropertiesconsult@protonmail.com. The message was short. "Greater than, we can finalize the deal once the documents are signed. Your sister promised cooperation. Don't back out now. CB." I stared at the initials. CB Carl Benson. The same man I had fired years ago for forging property titles and stealing from clients. A sharp anger rose in my chest. Melissa must have gone to him behind my back, desperate for money or revenge. But if Carl Benson was involved, that meant this wasn't just about fraud. It was about control. He had always wanted my business. I knew then what I had to do. I called Evelyn's old friend, Marcus, a retired investigator who once helped us recover stolen property from a corrupt developer. When I told him what happened, his tone turned deadly serious. "Grace," he said, "you're not dealing with amateurs. Carl Benson doesn't leave loose ends. If your sister's gone, it's because she crossed him." "I don't care," I said through clenched teeth. "He came after my family, my business, my life. I'm not hiding." Marcus sighed. "Then you'd better prepare yourself. Because if he knows you're digging, he'll come for you next." I hung up, but his words echoed in my head long after the call ended. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floor, every shadow outside the window made my heart race. I started to regret not taking the restraining order earlier, not against my family, but against my enemies. Still, I refused to be scared in my own house. I walked to my study, opened my laptop, and began compiling every document related to Carl Benson. My goal was simple: expose him before he destroyed me. Hours passed. Then, just as I was about to close my computer, I saw a light flicker across my security camera feed. Someone was outside. I clicked on the live footage. A dark figure stood near the gate, just beyond the camera's full view. They were holding something, a small black box. At first, I thought it was a package. But then they placed it near the gate's hinges and walked away quickly. My heart dropped. A black box. Near the gate. I called the police immediately. There's someone outside. I think they just planted something. Stay inside, Miss Grace, the operator said urgently. Units are on their way. I backed away from the window, fear clawing at my chest. I could feel my hands shaking again, the same way they had 8 years ago when I stood outside that very gate in the rain. Except this time, it wasn't my family on the other side. It was something far worse. A minute later, the explosion went off. It wasn't as large as the one that destroyed Melissa's car, more controlled, more precise. But it was enough to blow the gate wide open, sending shards of metal flying into the air. The security alarm blared. The lights flickered. Smoke filled the driveway again. Then I saw them, 3 figures, dressed in black, running through the open gate toward my house. They weren't burglars. They weren't kids. They moved with precision, fast, trained, professional. I grabbed the emergency phone and shouted into it, "They're inside. They're inside the gate. Miss Grace, hide," the guard yelled back. "We're 3 minutes away." 3 minutes. 3 minutes that suddenly felt like forever. I ran to the back of the house, my heart hammering in my chest. I could hear footsteps, heavy, deliberate, moving closer. The doorknob rattled. Then came a voice. "Grace Taylor," a man said calmly. "You should have stayed quiet." It was Carl Benson. I froze. The man I had fired years ago, the man who had destroyed my sister, was now standing outside my own door. He knocked once, twice. "You thought you could embarrass me, take my contracts, ruin my business. Now you're going to pay the same price your sister did." My mind raced. I needed to stall. I needed to survive until the guards arrived. I grabbed the emergency button hidden under my desk, one Evelyn had insisted I install years ago. It sent a silent signal straight to the local police network. "Carl," I called out, trying to steady my voice. "You don't have to do this. We can talk. You want money? I'll give you more than you ever." He laughed coldly. "Money? I don't need your money. I want your silence." The sound of glass breaking echoed through the hall. One of his men had smashed a window. I ducked behind the desk, my breathing shallow, my heart racing so fast I could hear it in my ears. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Then, a gunshot. I screamed and dropped to the floor. Another shot. Then shouting. But this time, it wasn't them shouting. It was the security team. "Down. Hands up." Chaos filled the house, running, shouting, gunfire echoing down the hallway. I covered my ears, praying it would stop. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, Officer Daniels was standing over me, helping me to my feet. "It's over," he said gently. "You're safe now." I looked around. The windows were shattered, smoke hung in the air, and one of the men in black lay handcuffed on the floor. But Carl Benson was gone. He had escaped. As they led me outside to the waiting ambulance, I looked up at the sky. The rain had started again, light, gentle, steady. It felt almost like the night 8 years ago when my family threw me out. Only this time, I wasn't the one in the cold. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. Because somewhere out there, Carl Benson was still watching. And he wasn't finished. The hospital room was quiet, except for the slow beep of the monitor beside my bed. My arm was wrapped in a bandage from a piece of flying glass, and my head throbbed from the shock. The world outside was still wet from the rain, the same rain that always seemed to return whenever my past came back for me. Officer Daniels stood by the window, flipping through his notepad. "You're lucky to be alive, Miss Grace. If your security team had arrived a minute later, it could have been much worse." I nodded weakly. "Did they find him?" Daniels shook his head. "Benson vanished. But we've got one of his men talking. He says Benson's running a fake property scheme out of an old construction site near the docks, the same place your sister went before she died. I turned my head toward him. Then that's where he'll be. He frowned. Grace, I know what you're thinking. Don't. Let us handle it. But as he spoke, I felt something deep inside me, a quiet, cold determination that had been growing since the night my family threw me out. I had spent too long letting people control my life. Not anymore. That night, after they released me from the hospital, I didn't go home. I went straight to my office downtown, the heart of Silver Rain Estates. My staff had been told to stay home for safety, but the lights were still on in my private suite. I opened the drawer where Evelyn's old voice recorder was kept and turned it on. Evelyn, I whispered, even though she was long gone, you once told me that the strongest revenge isn't anger, it's justice. I think I finally understand what you meant. I took a deep breath, picked up my phone, and made a call. Marcus, I said, I need your help. One last time. 2 nights later, I stood at the edge of the docks. The air smelled of salt and rust. Old warehouses loomed in the darkness, their broken windows glowing faintly from the flicker of a few working lights. Marcus had tracked Benson's location using information from the captured henchman. The police were preparing a warrant, but I wasn't waiting anymore. I knew it was dangerous. I knew Benson was armed. But I also knew he'd never stop unless someone ended this, and I wanted to look him in the eye when it did. Marcus's voice crackled through my earpiece. You sure about this, Grace? Yes, I whispered. I've been running from him for too long. He sighed. All right, I've got your back. Stay low, stay quiet. I moved silently through the shadows, my heart thudding against my ribs. The rain had started again, soft, cold drops falling from the black sky. Through a cracked door, I saw him, Carl Benson, pacing across the room, shouting at 2 men who stood nervously near a table stacked with laptops and papers. Do you have any idea what you've cost me? Benson barked. That woman destroyed my reputation. Half my clients are gone because of her. I want her gone, do you hear me? I don't care how. I clenched my fists. He wasn't just a criminal. He was obsessed. Suddenly, the floorboard creaked under my foot. Benson froze. His head snapped toward the door. Who's there? Before I could react, he grabbed a gun off the table and started walking toward me. I stepped into the light. It's me, Carl. His eyes widened. Grace Taylor. The way he said my name sent a chill down my spine. You should have stayed out of this, he growled. Your sister made the same mistake. She didn't deserve what you did to her, I said, keeping my voice steady. She was desperate, and you used her. She came to me, he snapped. She wanted to ruin you, and I gave her the chance. She just wasn't smart enough to finish the job. Something inside me broke. The anger, the grief, the years of silence, it all surged forward. You killed her, I said, my voice trembling. You destroyed my family, and for what? Money? He smiled coldly. No, because people like you think you can walk away from me. But no one walks away from Carl Benson. He raised his gun. Before he could pull the trigger, a spotlight suddenly lit up the entire warehouse. Drop your weapon. This is the police. Benson spun around, cursing, as officers flooded the building. Marcus had called them the moment I stepped inside. I ducked behind a crate as gunfire echoed through the air. When it finally stopped, the room was filled with shouts and the sound of boots on concrete. I peeked out just in time to see Benson on the ground, handcuffed, surrounded by police. Officer Daniels approached him. Carl Benson, you're under arrest for arson, attempted murder, and fraud. Benson looked up at me, his eyes burning with hate. You think this is over, Grace? You'll never be safe. There'll always be another me. I walked closer, my heart steady now. Maybe, but this time, I won't be the one standing in the rain. He sneered, but the officers dragged him away before he could say another word. The rain poured harder now, washing away the smoke and dust from the scene. As I stood there, soaked and shaking, I looked up at the gray sky and closed my eyes. It was finally over. Weeks later, the trial made headlines. Corrupt property tycoon arrested after attempted murder of businesswoman. The court found Carl Benson guilty on all charges. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Melissa's death was ruled a murder, and the police confirmed what I already knew. She had been blackmailed into helping him forge documents. Her last act, trying to warn me, had probably saved my life. I made sure she had a proper funeral. Mom and Jason came, standing quietly by her grave. They didn't say much to me, but when the ceremony ended, Mom touched my arm gently. "Grace," she whispered, tears in her eyes, "I'm sorry for everything. For that night. For not standing by you. I was wrong." I looked at her, remembering the pain, the anger, the cold rain. For a moment, I wanted to stay silent. But then, I thought about what all this had taught me. "You can't undo the past, Mom," I said softly. "But you can learn from it." She nodded, and for the first time in years, I saw something real in her eyes, regret. As they walked away, I stayed behind for a moment longer. I placed a single white lily on Melissa's grave and whispered, "You made mistakes, but you didn't deserve how it ended. Rest now. I'll take care of everything from here." When I turned to leave, the rain started again, gentle, steady, calm. I smiled. Because this time, I wasn't being thrown out into it. I was walking through it, stronger, wiser, and free. And that was the moment I realized the real revenge wasn't destroying the people who hurt me. It was becoming someone they could never break. Life lesson. When people betray you, don't waste your life trying to hurt them back. Let success, strength, and peace be your revenge. Because nothing hurts a person who once looked down on you more than watching you rise higher than they ever imagined. And that's how karma found its way back, through patience, strength, and a single phone call. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if your family came back after betraying you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you believe that success is the best revenge. Your support helps bring more powerful stories like this to life. Heartbreak Fire.